ES6 or ECMAScript 6 is the latest edition of ECMA. If you're not aware of ECMA is the scripting organization which is responsible for introducing and updating JavaScript. So ECMAScript is the latest edition and it has introduced certain new characteristics which we will gonna see in this next slide. Okay, arrow function. Arrow function is a way to write normal functions. It is written with a syntax called function name equal to with parentheses followed by an arrow and then in curly braces. It binds the context lexically. So basically, if you know about hosting, what happen is in hosting, if you use this if you use this object in a function, it will check inside the function because the execution context of this will be the function itself. But if you want to get something for the global context, you have to pass it imperatively. I'll give you an example which will makes it more clear. Let's see how an arrow function works. First, I'll write a normal function A. This is how we write a function normally in JavaScript, okay? And I'll return something in this. Now if I want to write an arrow function of this, I'll write constant. Instead of using A, I'll write B, because every function should have a unique name. And then I'll do this. Oh, sorry, I missed the arrow here. Okay. Suppose if you don't have a argument to pass, you can write this also. You can put a underscore. It will work. Suppose you only have to return something, then return. Oh, sorry, you don't have to write return, you just write hi. Okay, now if I run this, let's see. Okay, since it's returning a string, I should print that string. My apologies. Okay, hi. See, so this is how you write an arrow function. Okay, now let's understand something very fun or very important part of a arrow function. With this example, you can understand why we should use arrow function. First, look at the amount of code I am writing here. 4 lines. You can write the same amount of code in one line. It's sleek. It gives your code a cleaner look. Okay. And second very important thing is the lexical binding, which this arrow function provide. So to understand this, first I'll use strict in my JavaScript file. Why I'm using use strict? Because use strict not only makes sure we follow the good and accepted industrial practices, but it also makes sure the browser has the latest update updated code, which it should have the latest ECMAScript. So it tells the browser to use the latest ECMAScript. Okay, and this is very important because as we progress in our web development, our applications will ECMAScripts will change, and this will help to maintain the modernity of our application. So enough about use strict. Let's dive into lexical binding of it. Suppose I'll just declare a variable called num equal to 2. Okay, and I want to console that. This num in this function, okay, and I'll change this. Okay, and I'll want to console in the arrow function. So this is the two function. First is the normal function and another is the second one is the arrow function. Now what I'll do, I'll just invoke the functions. Okay, first we will see what will happen when we invoke the normal function. Let's go. We are getting an error called cannot read properties of undefined num. So why we are getting this error? If you have seen my video about my video about this, what basically this object does is to point it to the current execution context of the variable. Now current execution context, in this the current execution context is function a. So this is like it's checking in a whether there is a variable called num is not there or not. Okay, if it's not finding, it is returning it's false. But what happened, now let's check what happens if I invoke this arrow function. See, you're getting the value too. How you're getting this value? In arrow function, what happen is, first it will check this function execution context. If it doesn't find it, it will check the global context. Okay, that's how it's able to access its global context number and not giving us error. Now maybe if you try this example by yourself and you don't use strict, and if you run this, see, error is gone. Why error is gone? Because JavaScript is a flexible language. Okay, so what it wants, it try to incorporate your code as much as it wants. So basically, if you won't use strict, this will go in global context and check it. But since I told you use strict is the best practice we should follow, if suppose in your code use strict is there, you won't be able to do this functionality. That's why we use arrow functions.